Hey, Flip It Red, California. I'm Anne Elizabeth, and I'm one of the moderators here at Flip It Red, where our goal is to flip as many seats from blue to red as possible. Today, we are speaking with Aja Smith. Aja is running for Congress in the 41st District against incumbent Mark Takano. The 41st District encompasses parts of northwestern Riverside County. Aja is an Air Force veteran sergeant who decided at a young age that she wanted to follow in the footsteps of her family and help preserve the great freedoms that our country was founded upon. She made that dream come true, and in 2002, Aja joined the Air Force. In 2007, Aja was part of Operation Enduring Freedom while stationed in the Middle East in Qatar. Aja points out on her page that if elected, Aja would become the first African American female Republican to serve in Congress from California, which is great. So,
Thanks.
thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell our community why you are running for Congress?
Well, thank you for having me, and it's a great honor and pleasure. Right now, we are in the turmoil of a lot of political issues going on. I did run back in 2018 against my opponent, Mark Takano, and I decided to run again because I felt, well, actually, I'll take a little step back. My grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, and she did pass away, but she told me, she said, I want you to run again. And this, and I'm going to be right beside you, and I'm going to make sure. And so I did. So she did pass away. I filed my paperwork, and I said, I'm going to give this another shot because I still see a lot of issues going on with the supermajority in the House of Representatives that my opponent, Adam Schiff, Maxine Waters, you name them all, they're not representing the constituents in the districts. They only care about themselves. They don't care about the American people. They want to dismantle our republic. And it's a time where I've been noticing that moderate Democrats and no party preference are coming out and saying, yes, we're tired of the shenanigans going on with the supermajority in the House of Representatives. A lot of people are afraid. We had the COVID crisis, businesses going out of business, taxes are skyrocketing in California. I'm a California native, and this is the worst I've ever seen. I was born and raised in California. So everybody out there, we've seen the ups and downs, but this is the worst, especially under Gavin Newsom. And even though that is a state, but as a federal level representative, you do have a lot of influence and say to really start making people understand the California politics. I always joke and actually became a motto, as California goes, the rest of the nation follows. So all these bills that are coming out of California, they're going to the House level. When it comes to child pedophilia, I will repost it on my Facebook page, Aja Smith for Congress. There was two bills 2 years ago that my opponent voted nay on, was protecting children against online predators. Now we have the California bill that allows sexual predators to have inappropriate relationships and intercourse with the 10-year gap, and this needs to stop. This should resonate to every political party, every background, no matter who you are, where we have to say the buck has to stop. And we need to take our state back, not only our country, but our state back. I have many friends who left the state of California. We hardly have any good businesses here left. Manufacturing is gone, and we're here to fend ourselves. So when I see the politics on the local, state, and federal level, we have to take and stand, and we have to say enough is enough and flip and get involved in as many elections and candidates and backing each other as much as we can, because the Golden State is no longer a Golden State. It literally tarnished. And so I don't want to see that here happen in California. I don't want to move. I want to stay, stand, and fight for what is right. And right now we have the defund police rhetoric going along, and we can't have that either. And my opponent is right behind that defund police movement. And right now I've been backed by our Riverside Sheriff's Association. I got the endorsement from our Riverside Sheriff, Chad Bianco, also the California Fraternal Order of Police as well. So we're getting the momentum, but right now we have to really get the message out to the community that I am the law enforcement and constitutional republic candidate.
On your issues tab, your very first topic is national defense.
Yes.
I am well versed in national security issues. from homegrown terrorism and international terrorism. These are problems that must be addressed. Issues in global security affect Riverside directly, which I found very interesting that you would say that, so I'd like you to talk about, and indirectly when it comes to implementing strategic domestic and foreign policy. So how does it affect your district? Or
It affects my district because we have a military installation, March Air Reserve Base. We are the largest reserve base on the West Coast and the largest reserve base in the whole entire Reserve Command. That's where I did my duty and service. Little brief history, March Air Reserve Base used to be called Alessandro Airfield back in 1918, 1919, and it became an active duty base named after Lieutenant March. And so we were active duty for a very long time until the Clinton administration came in and started bracketing and realigning all the bases. So March went from active duty to a reserve base. And people say, well, you're just weekend warriors. Well, technically, no. We have an active duty mission there still, even though there's a reserve base. So it's a kind of a weird situation, but we have the longest airstrip on the West Coast. So any natural disaster, war breakout, March is there to take those reins and to really fight. One thing I noticed about my opponent, he sits on the Veterans Affairs Committee. He is the chairman, and still the veterans have issues when it comes to medical, when it comes to funding, when it comes to pay raises. He has no clue. I'm a veteran. And I always tell people, this guy has never served. I know the issues, especially the different components of the military, active duty, reservist, civil service, because I was a civil service employee. So I know all those issues that encompasses when it, for the Department of Defense and getting federal money and getting the resources for our men and women to do our jobs, and also expanding the programs and also expanding cybersecurity around the surrounding area, not only for national defense and cybersecurity, but also creating jobs. And that's what a lot of people I've been talking to, a lot of young people, they're getting these great degrees, but they have to go out of state to go get a good paying job. And I want them to come here, say, hey, we're going to come to District 41. We're going to learn IT skills. We're going to learn electronic and engineering and be the heart of this of a STEM program, but where are you going to go get a job? And so having a good public and private partnership with like companies such as Raytheon and Northrop, we need to start bringing them here because we have the land for it, we have the talent for it, but we have a representative that doesn't see that type of vision, even though he claims he's a teacher for Congress.
Let's keep on the topic of your opponent. As you mentioned, my opponent consistently votes against adequately protecting our nation from adversaries, supported the Iran nuclear deal.
Yes, he did.
Giving Iran, the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, tens of billions of dollars. And then you go on to mull over his bad judgments like insecure email server, like hiring the Awan brothers as IT staffers, and the list is long and it goes on. And I think you should expand on this because it was eye-opening, the things he pulled in regards to this topic. So
and there's more to it. I'm going to be reposting an op-ed that we wrote on his connection with the Ukraine scandal. His chief of staff, along with Adam Schiff's team, went to the Ukraine 2 weeks right before the whistleblower. So that was very eye-opening. And at the same time, you have a congressional representative that's not a loudmouth, I call, like Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff. He kind of flies underneath that radar where nobody pays attention to him, but he has a lot to do what we see going on, especially with the Ukraine hoax, the impeachment hoax, the Russian hoax, the Awan brothers, which was a terrible situation because it ended up where Seth Rich was found dead. And so those type of connections do need to be out there and exposed because you have a congressional representative that kind of flies underneath the radar. He's not as outspoken, but we need to start exposing his dirty deeds and his backroom deals as well, because we have these people that are getting elected. And I have a background in national security, plus I was a security manager, where I look at him, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, they could never pass a DOD background check. If I did what Hillary Clinton did with those emails and the cell phones and the servers in her house, I will be in Leavenworth. I will never be able to hold a security clearance. And I look at Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, they could never pass a regular DOD background check. And those are the things that I like to see in Congress. Hey, if you're going to handle classified information and be in these intelligent briefings, we need to do background checks on who are we giving this information to, especially have all these leaks with this current president. It was shameful, it was disgraceful. If we had done that as a regular DOD employees, we will be fired, fined, and probably put in prison. So we need to make change.
Aja, your next hot topic is veterans, as it should be. You come from
Yes.
a family of veterans. Grandparents both served in the U.S. military. Your grandfather was a veteran of World War II, Korea,
Yes.
Vietnam. Your great uncle was a Tuskegee. Tell me
Tuskegee Airmen.
Airman pilot. Veterans Affairs is an important issue for you. You said, as someone who has served in our military and someone from a family of veterans, I fully understand the needs and issues for our service members. Now, I just want to mention this. Your opponent, you mentioned also, consistently votes against military funding, and that includes pay raises for our service members.
Yes.
3 times this year for the government shutdown.
Yeah.
He claims to understand veterans, but has never served. So.
No, I call him the photo op opponent. All he does is give a nice certificate and a photo op. Oh, I did my deed. Come around election time, that's where he starts to answer the issues. But after election, he goes back into Washington, D.C. swamp and just wait for Nancy Pelosi to tell him what to do. So we need a proactive person, and I'm your proactive person. I'm the person that if you have an issue, a congressional complaint, if you have a VA complaint, if you have a pay complaint, I am there because I know the issues and the ins and out of that government bureaucracy and that red tape. And that red tape needs to be cut finally, especially for our men and women in the military. And true story, my grandmother, she was a Korean War veteran. So before she passed away, she found out she can get benefits. And so she applied knowing that she's 89 years old and she has terminal cancer. It literally took her 6 months to get approved, and she passed away before her paycheck. And to me, that's awful. It should have never taken 6 months. And knowing her health condition, at least let her get her first couple of paychecks to feel a little bit happy and to enjoy that money, because she served she was a Korean War veteran. She was a nurse. And even my grandfather, he was a 3 war veteran, and he was an Agent Orange, and it took him a very long time to get his benefits, and finally he did. But it takes so long for our veterans to actually get those benefits, and especially you can see they're seniors, they're elderly. It shouldn't take that long. Yes, we should screen everybody to make sure they're not frauding the system, but at the same time, we have to say, okay, we have the proof here. Let's cut those checks. Let's get this rolling. So because a lot of our veterans are suffering from PTSD. I've lost friends due to suicide. It is hard to combat veteran suicide, but we need some more private partnerships for people to go out and seek help if they have suicidal tendencies and are too afraid to tell their chain of command because they can get kicked out or reprisal. And we see what happened in Fort Hood with the missing soldiers and people being found dead. And the young lady, oh, it was so tragically, she went to her chain of command about being sexually harassed, and they, she was missing. They found her dismembered. And the guy who did it, he did commit suicide, but at the same time, what happened in Fort Hood should have never happened. And I was tweeting and I was tagging everybody I could, even Mark Takano, saying, why aren't you guys going down there and doing a big investigation at this military installation instead of worrying about impeachment and Trump is bad and everything else? This is not what you're here to serve for or be on these committees. And so those are the issues that I see that I know I can help and tackle and bring awareness to in Washington, D.C., that the people come first. Your personal issues need to come last, regardless of who is going to be president. I do have a feeling it's going to be President Trump again, but we're going to go through the same cycle for another 4 years, and you're going to have people, Fort Hood, you're going to have suicides, you're going to have people in blue states like ours, they're going to be suffering because of the dog and pony show that's going on in Washington, D.C., and it needs to stop. We are here to represent the people and work for the people. It's called We the People, correct? And we are a republic. And so we need to start educating even people who disagree with us moderately. And even I've been trying to reach out to those who have more of extremist ideas and say, you know what? You need to read the Constitution. You need to go back to basic civics, because right now what I'm seeing when I hear democracy, I already know they want mob rule, get rid of the republic and have a full democracy. And that's what their intentions are to do. And so that's why I tell everybody, especially in California, we can make the biggest difference here because we hold the most House seats, actually majority of House seats in California, and we can flip this at least to a purple, pink, and maybe even red this election cycle.
Yeah, I agree. As a matter of fact, that's what I think this whole shutdown on mail-in votes is. But let's talk about that, because as this election seems like it's going into an incredibly unfair direction with what they've done to the voting system.
Yes.
Amazing how many people have signed off on accepting all this. But so as for mail-in voting, what do you think about mail-ins and what's going to happen?
I'm going to tell you, mail-in voting, I live in a city where long time ago, it was about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, there was a lot of voter fraud. And so I saw firsthand on how all of that goes. And now they made it legal in California to ballot harvest. And that's how we lost a lot of seats in 2018. Even if we do play that same game, not everybody's going to give away their ballot. We can try. But the mail-in voting does open up a Pandora's box, because I did ask, I said, I'm a person who register to vote at the poll. And they said, I will still get a mail-in ballot. And I said, well, isn't that kind of double voting? And so I did a cold call to my local registrar office, and they weren't too sure. And I said, what are the implementations if I do it by a ballot? If I do a mail-in ballot, how are you going to determine which one's fraudulent or not? And so this is where I know it's going to be the biggest issue, and it's going to probably go to court. I don't know how old you are, but I remember when Bush got into office, and that whole thing went to the Supreme Court because it got contested. And I see that coming. And with the mail-in voting, I tell everybody, if you get that mail-in ballot, take it directly to your local registrar's office. The post office, I have nothing against the men and women who work there, but there has been some fraud that has been exposed where the ballots have been disappeared or thrown away. And also tell your neighbors, look, I know you're a Democrat, but do you like what's going on in this country? I know you're independent, libertarian, no party preference, even some Greenpeace people. Do you really like what's going on in California as a whole? So let's get together as a community, as a neighborhood, and start voting our values and start voting our conscience. Lower taxes, better representation, because right now it's a big pivotal moment in this election. I stress it so much, where we had our moment in the midterm, but this is it. This is where we have to decide how we're going to move our country forward in a better light, how our founding fathers intended it to be. So the mail-in voting, if you get it, I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. Send your mail-in ballots safely, securely, document it, and follow up with it that they received it. And that's something we're going to have to even get the churches involved as well, to start talking about these issues quickly. Because if we start talking to our local pastors, I know they're afraid to come out, but we have to say, hey, we have to start voting our conscious and biblical principles as well.
Okay, let's talk about small businesses drowning in California with a shutdown, with crazy bills like AB5. There's so many things businesses, they can't keep afloat. So what do we do?
Well, my opponent, he is anti-small business. And I remember when I first ran, I dug up a YouTube video where the small business organization, they said how he's against small businesses. He believes in higher taxes. AB5, which is Assembly Bill 5, that really ruining a lot of independent contractors, not just the Uber and Lyft drivers. I'm talking about people who are interpreters, who are tutors, little jobs here and there, hairstylists. And a lot of people don't realize this. House Resolution 2474 is AB5's federal version, and he passed it. He actually voted for it. It's called the PRO Act. So that's why I tell people, pay attention to these bills coming out these states, especially California, because they're sending those bills to Washington, D.C., of course, renaming them, different resolution, and people can't really keep on track with it, but it's the same bills. And so it shows you right there. He says he's for the little people. He's for small business owners, especially in my district. We're majority minority small business owner owned, and he's not here to help hardly any resources. When the whole COVID started, I was pushing out food bank information, how to get resources, how to help each other out. And guess what he was doing? He was doing cooking shows online. I kid you not. You can go back. He was telling people how to make some type of thing out of canned biscuits. But here I am, I'm dead serious. And so people started to take notice with that. Even some of his supporters say, you know what, this is kind of inappropriate where your opponent is telling us how to go get food, how, different restaurants are offering family packs, how to find the toilet paper because we had a toilet paper scare here. And so those are the things that I was doing for the community, telling people where to go, how to get resources, how to go to these food drives, where he's literally doing cooking shows and just didn't care, and how to get federal money and some relief to the small business owners into our district. We have a mixture, but we're heavily small business owners, and a lot of people had to shut down. I was in downtown Riverside. I saw a lot of places boarded up saying, we don't know if we're coming back or we're just completely out of business. So that American dream left. And it is really sad. I mean, people think small businesses, oh, well, you'll be fine and everything else. And it's like, no, you worked very hard. That is your American dream. That is your dream to provide for your family, regardless of what business it is. And you have a representative that's not really responsive to try to get that relief, going out there and doing the food drives, going out there and saying, hey, let me try to get some more federal funding here to keep you guys afloat. And a lot of people are seeing that across the aisle as well when I post those type of resources, and they were very thankful.
Okay. California taxes. How do we stop the bleeding? It's pushing people out of the state. People are leaving. They can't afford it. Now there's
Right.
on the ballot is about increasing property taxes on top of all these other taxes, and homeowners who bought their homes 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
Crush them. But taxes pour out in California like a faucet at this point.
I have two great friends who are running for state assembly, Ali Mazzari and Chris Rahaga, and their districts overlap with my district. And we've been teaming up and sharing information about the taxes. And my friend Ali, he is a business owner. He said the taxes are killing me. I'm an employer. I have to pay my people. I have to eat too, and I have to make money as well. And a lot of people on the opposition, they think higher taxes will solve everything, but it doesn't. You're destroying communities, you're destroying families. People will leave, and they have left. And to me, on the federal level, I was very grateful for the tax cuts, but on the state level, we still have an issue with the state, with the supermajority who are jacking up the taxes, where Elon Musk said, I can't even do business here, so I have to take my manufacturing plant and go to Texas because they gave them a better tax deal. So you're actually not creating jobs, you're losing jobs. You're losing people's livelihoods. And we always hear about these taxes with these bonds. Oh, they're for the school and they're for the roads, but they're not. And we should have learned that when the Proposition 6, remember the gas tax? It was a total how can I say it? It wasn't true. And what about the taxes that I'm paying now? How are we going to be accountable for those state and local taxes? And as a property owner myself, as a homeowner, you're saying, well, you want to raise the taxes on the bigger businesses, but guess what? They're going to leave, and you're going to put those on the small businesses. They're going to leave. So guess what? It's going to come down to us homeowners, where senior citizens won't be able to afford to live here. A lot of people who are on a fixed income, who are low middle class income, they won't be able to afford to live here, where the taxes on my mortgage are going to outweigh my actual mortgage rate. And so you're going to force me out of my property. And so that's where I tell people, also pay attention who's running for the local level government, the state level government. Federal, we can do as much as we can, but we can have a lot of influence. but get and see who's running for your assembly district, your city council district, your board of supervisors district, and your state representative, because those are the ones who are actually making all those laws in Sacramento with the big money behind them. And also, I tell people I can only do so much, but I can be a fighter with you and tell you and stand behind you that the taxes do need to be lower here in California for us to survive. Because if we keep jacking up these taxes, we won't have a place to live. You'll see more homelessness. California has the highest rate of homeless population in the nation. And there's a different factors to that too. And I'll discuss my plan a little bit later on about the homeless issue. But a lot of people say, hey, I lost my house, or I have to go move in with family members, or I have to move out of state because I just can't afford to live here. I don't know if you read California Governor Newsom, he said, if you retire here and you move out of state, we're still going to tax you for the next 10 years. And I'm like, that's crazy. So we have to really get involved in this election, not only just a presidential election and a House of Representatives, but you're also the supermajority in Sacramento and also the local government, and start voting and start getting out there and vote for those people and ask them very hardcore questions.
Aja, you just got a great endorsement you spoke about earlier in your district from Riverside Sheriff's Association, and you've said you've gotten a couple more that you were going to announce. So what do you think about all this defunding of the forces?
I think it's a horrible idea when I first heard it. And this is where I even tried to explain to my friends who are on the opposite aisle of political party. And they even told me, well, defund doesn't mean what you mean. I said, yes, it does, because I listen and pay attention to those who push this agenda, where they actually said they have a 5-year plan to abolish the police. I heard it out their mouths in interviews on social media. It was not fabricated and it's not made up. When you have a community and you have an issue, who do you call? You call the police department. You call the men and women who are wearing that uniform, and they are there to help you. And what I see what's going on, this rhetoric of defunding the police, it is not what my opponent says it is or Nancy Pelosi says it is. They know it is to abolish that particular system. And I learned for the past 25 years that words do matter. And when you hear like Hillary Clinton and even Joe Biden talking about, the crime bill of 1994, Hillary Clinton calling people super predators, you have to pay attention to those words and what those true meanings are. So when I hear defund the police, I know right then and there, they're talking about abolish the police departments. And to me, it's the most scariest thing to think of, even though a lot of us who are Republican, conservatives say, well, that will never happen. But I always tell them, look at history. Look at how these people are really driving this agenda, what we see in Seattle, what we see in Portland, Wisconsin, even Rochester, New York, where they are attacking the police officers. They are actually trying to burn down police stations. I've seen it all. So when it comes to our men and women who are out there every single day, just like the 2 police officers who were shot, I can tell you that female police officer, she needs a medal. She was so heroic, where she was shot in the jaw, plied to turn got her partner aid so quickly and still called for help. That right there should have been everybody saying enough is enough with this rhetoric, with the defund police. Yes, we have seen instances with different situations with police brutality, but we have to find out the rest of the story, not just a little bit here and a little bit there. Find out the rest of the story and make sure that the justice system does work. But that doesn't represent all of our police officers. We have a great community here, Riverside Sheriff's Department. And I can say this, that our sheriff, Chad Bianco, endorsed me as well. And the California Fraternal Order of Police endorsed me, because I don't want to see this type of rhetoric. I have police officer friends, and I tell them I pray for you every single day that you won't be ambushed and attacked. I know you do a good job. And they say, thank you so much. We have to not only back our military members, but also our firefighters, the people, our first responders, and our police departments, because they're there to protect us. They are citizens. They are taxpayer citizens. They're the people that we see at the grocery store out of uniform. They're the people that are there that were protecting our children in schools. And I even heard some more rhetoric here in my district where some of these school board members want to take police out of schools. So if you take police out of schools, if there's an active shooter or a terrorist attack or something, who's going to protect these children? The teachers are too afraid. Their hands are tied because of the teachers' unions. Just last year, we had a young little boy down the street from me at a middle school that I used to go to. He got into a fight so badly where the kid who hit him in the jaw, his head went back into the post and it cracked his skull and he died. He died. I kid you not, he died. His name was Diego. And that breaks my heart. Right here in my own city, the school is literally about 2 miles away, and I went to the same middle school when I was younger. So when you're talking about defunding the police, taking police out of schools, you're putting our children at risk. You're putting not only our children at risk, you're putting our senior citizens at risk, our American disabilities community at risk. You're putting everybody at risk, including our homeless. You're putting every single one with this rhetoric that is going on, and then you're making our law enforcement officers targets. And what happened in Los Angeles a few weeks ago, they were just sitting in their car and here comes a gunman and shoots them. We cannot do this anymore. And I tell people, I don't care what political party you are, the common sense has to come back. We need to bring that common sense back in November and start voting what we want to see in our community. Then I hear people, yes, I am a minority, I'm a minority female. A lot of people in the Black community, we don't want to defund the police. A lot of people in the Hispanic and Latino community, they don't want to defund the police. Heck, their family members are police officers. Those are jobs that, during my grandparents' time, they were poor. They joined the military to get out of poverty. And a lot of people who don't want to go to 4-year degrees, they do a civil service job, such as becoming a police officer, an EMT, a firefighter, and they want to be part of the community. So we need to support each other with good community relationships. If there's an issue, we're not going to riot and say we're going to defund the police. We're not going to riot and defund the fire department. We're not going to riot and defund the military. Trust me, that came up too in Washington, D.C., defunding the military. No, we can come together because we all live together and we all support each other and we want a safe community to live. People say, well, this is a local issue. No, to me, it's a federal issue because this resonates across the country. And that's why I'm so glad we have a senator named Senator Tim Scott who put out there his bill on police reform. And I admire him so much. Hopefully one day I get to meet him and work side to side with him. I would love to. Him and I have a very similar background to bring common sense back, common sense policies, and work together instead of this rhetoric that we see. And that really comes from the bottom of my heart, especially for our men and women that are out there every single day where it breaks my heart when I see in social media, officer down, or they've been shot, they've been ambushed, they've been tormented. This is a time where we have to start voting with the common sense, the policies, and to really get these radical representatives out of office and all levels of government.
So you spoke earlier about homeless, and being a veteran, homeless is made up of many veterans. It's one of the higher populations, and you have also your opponent who is constantly voting down Veterans Affairs. And then people wonder why there's so many homeless on the street, but they keep putting these Democrats back in office who are voting down these veteran affairs. And so what do you think of homeless, and what can we do in California?
Well, California, we have the highest population of homeless in the entire nation. And you have different categories of homelessness. You have people who live paycheck to paycheck and they just cannot find a place to live and they're really struggling. Their families are single parents. And then you have those who want to stay out in the street. And then you have a big part of homeless population, and that goes into my background with my mother and grandmother. My grandmother was a psych nurse, and we used to talk about this for years, the mental health portion of it. And I would like, and my opponent believes homelessness is not a federal issue. It has become a federal issue. Even when I ran for the primary, my opponent had another Democrat opponent, Dr. Grace Williams, and we were both on the same page when it came to homeless issues. And it was really funny. People say, you guys sounded like we're just different parties. She was pro-choice, I'm pro-life. That was pretty much the difference. So when it comes to homelessness, we need to bring in federal money to bring in better treatment, mental health treatment facilities here. You can't just build houses and shove everybody in a house and think out of sight, out of mind, okie dokie. You're dealing with people with bipolar schizophrenia. You're dealing with people who are drug addicts. You're dealing with people who are just so far gone that they don't even know if they need help or not. Yes, we want to place the people who've been waiting for housing, get them in good affordable housing and get them off the street before they get sucked into this vacuum of being in the streets and they end up getting mental illness as well. Because I know somebody who that happened to, and she had to really seek help and to get her out of that situation because she started to find herself getting bipolar and depression. The homeless issue is a federal issue, and I know some people disagree with me, but I say if we can bring in more federal money and we can bring in more mental health treatment facilities and to really start evaluating and getting those people off the streets, we can see a bigger difference. It's not going to take overnight. It may take 10 years, it may take 15 years, but we need to start somewhere now. I drive around my district. I've been living in my district since 1988. I was 8 years old. We only saw one homeless person in this district, in my city. Now I drive everywhere. I go to the gas station. There's somebody there. I was in downtown Riverside the other day and I was on a freeway. My mom said, look, there was a homeless encampment across the top of the freeway. And I said, what are we doing? Where's this money going to? We need accountability, not only bringing in the money, but also making sure that transparency and that money is not going to somebody's pocket for a six-figure salary just to do paperwork. So we need to develop a plan, and it not only affects California, a nationwide plan to really start looking at mental health treatment in this country, and especially those out in the streets. I was in New York a couple of months ago. It was devastating. To me, it was the most horrible thing to see because when I was in New York before 20 years ago, yeah, I saw some people homeless in the subways, in the subway stations, in the parks, but it gotten worse. You go to downtown LA, you can't even go to LA anymore. I see people posting pictures, and I said, this is not the LA where I used to hang out when I was in my younger days and have a good time. It was infested with trash and how can I be appropriate here? Feces and urine and people just that really need to get mental health treatment. So that's where I like, hopefully get elected, and I pray I get elected to really start bringing that and have that notice in Washington, D.C., that we need to start focusing on mental health treatment, the opioid crisis as well. I know the president has started that, but a lot of these people who are out in the streets, they're addicted to opioids. And of course, that makes your mind do a lot of different things and chemical imbalances. So that's what we need to do, not just what Gavin Newsom wants to do, to stick people in houses, out of sight, out of mind. That is a failed policy. We need to start bringing more mental health treatments and start getting people the treatment that they need if they are successful to get treatment, and also really start looking at, I'm not talking about putting people in Arkham like in these horrible facilities that my grandmother grew up with, but a lot of places look like resorts. They're nice, they're comforting. You can get treatment, you can get a meal, you can have somebody watch over you until we can try to rehabilitate you and help you get a job. If not, at least you're in a safe place and now out in the street in the rain, extreme heat, a danger to yourself and others. So that is my vision and plan.
Aja, is there anything else that you would like to tell our community today?
I'm telling everybody, don't give up on California. And I've been telling this to every single person I meet, every single interview. We have to get out and vote. We have to have those uncomfortable conversations with people who disagree with us, maybe who are on the fence, and saying, okay, we know you may feel this way about the president, but do you really like what's going on in California and the rest of the nation? We have to switch and get people like myself elected in the House of Representatives. We have to get involved in what's going on in Sacramento. And we definitely have to get involved in what's going on in our local governments and constantly vote and have community outreach. We're doing that here in my district. Don Dix is a great friend of mine. You can go to my Facebook page. He's a radio host out here. He just endorsed me as well. He has a platform called Town Hall to discuss all the issues going on in California, all the propositions. And we have to start educating our neighbors and start getting the word out and say, do you know that the California passes bill for sexual predators to have, you know, inappropriate relationships with minors? And people's like, no, I didn't know that. Okay, then you need to vote for Aja. You need to vote for Ali. You need to vote for Chris Rahagi. You need to vote wherever you can spread this word. Social media right now is our biggest platform to get our message out. I don't know how we're going to even do door knocking or, you know, the mail-in ballots, but we have to get everybody on board. Get your churches involved, because at this time, the state of California says you can't go to church. They shut down churches. I mean, you can go to Costco, you can go everywhere else, you can go to the liquor store, you can go whatever else you do, but you can't go to church. That should be the biggest wake up call for a lot of those who are the Christian faith. I am a Christian and I am pro-life, but we have to tell these pastors and the congregation, we need to make a serious change quickly. We can pray, I pray all day, but we have to go out there and do the work. Find out if you're not in my district, you can help me out. If you want to, you can go to my website, Aja Smith, AJA Smith, for FORcongress.com. If you want a phone bank and text bank for me, that's great. Send me your information. Find candidates in your district that you can help out. Hey, I can't walk, but I'll do this. Hey, I can help you put up signs. You need an extra $10 or $15? Here's that donation to help you out. I keep telling people, this is it. Now that we had an opening in the Supreme Court, this is going to be the test of where we're going to go forward as a country. If they do pick a Supreme Court justice by next week, we're going to see the biggest issues with rioting, upsets, and we have to stick together and back each other. It's about taking our country, moving forward, and going back to what our founding fathers wanted our country to be. We have to take back this state, because when what's going on in Sacramento with the supermajority, Gavin Newsom blaming climate change over arsonists with the fires, I don't know how anybody can really sit back and say, I either had enough or I'm just not going to be involved. You have to be involved. Propositions are coming up. We have to educate ourselves and our neighbors, your mailman, your whoever you talk to on a daily basis, and start pushing that. Social media is great, but we need to hit the streets and have boots on the ground, because if we don't flip, at least try to flip this state, I'm telling you, my motto is, as California goes, the rest of the nation follows. And that's why I like this, flip it red. We have to do it district by district, area by area, and we need full boots on the ground. This is a ground game. It's a big army that we need to do, because the opposition is gearing up. We see what's going on in Seattle. We see what's going on in Portland. We see what's going on in Wisconsin and Rochester, New York, and they're going to get bigger and bigger and louder. Florida, I can say they're sticking together. California, we need to expand, and we need to get together to start making change in the state quickly within the next 2 months, because this is our livelihoods. We don't want to move. It's a beautiful state, but the policies with the supermajority and the House representatives up in DC, what goes on in California, the rest of the nation, including middle America, this is what's coming.
I have to tell you, that was one of the most powerful interviews I've had. I think that you're so passionate, and
Thank you.
Words are amazing. So thank you, Aja.
Thank you. No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here with our community and your
Yes.
dedication. You've already shown to our country, and your love for America will serve us all well with you in Congress.
Thank you so much. And I ask everybody, like I keep saying, get involved now. Don't wait till after or anything else. Get involved now. I see it coming.
For more information on Aja Smith for Congress, please visit her website at www.ajaforcongress.com. That's
Yes.
AJA for FOR and Congress.com.
And on Facebook
And on Facebook, Aja for Congress.
and Twitter.
And I will be linking all these onto YouTube. Please give and give big, because she cannot do this alone. And we don't have Hollywood or Silicon Valley money on our side. So skip your latte and give it and help get elected. Thank you.
Give and volunteer. That's what we all need here. We need to, we're going to flip it. We can do it. Give and volunteer.
Such a privilege to have had you on today.
Thank you so much. It's a great privilege. And invite me on anytime.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.